Welcome to the Life Makeovers podcast. My name is Cindy D. Whitmer, and I am the Midlife Makeover Coach, helping you turn your midlife into your best life, one step at a time. Through powerful conversations, my own midlife roller coaster story, and over 3 decades of helping people transform their lives through counseling and coaching, I am on a mission to help you create your own definition of success and happiness. Thank you for being here. Hey, everybody, it's Cindy here. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Life Makeovers podcast. I hope you're having a great week so far. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Rachel Anzalone, who I met recently from a mutual friend of ours, Alyssa Bakar, who does the Rise and Shine show herself on YouTube, and we've both been guests on her show, and we decided, hey, let's have a conversation, because I know Rachel has some personal and professional experiences that I think will be really, really interesting for you to hear about today. So Rachel, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you start off by telling us more about yourself?
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and it's great to meet like-minded people through our network. Like, so much gratitude to Alyssa for bringing us together. And I'm happy to be here. So my work in the world is as a satisfaction strategist. I work with mostly women entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their business in a way that's in alignment with their vision and their values, with the lifestyle that they want to create, to have impact in the world in a really big way. And so I support them in figuring out how to do that in a way that's profitable and sustainable. And sometimes that's people who have existing businesses, and sometimes it's people who are just a little further along in life and they have a legacy project that they want to create. And so I love helping people a little later on. I would say past 40. So people in our age group build that thing that's going to have impact in the long run.
Well, that's when I met you, I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, your work means so much to me too, because of course that's why I went into business for myself, or one of the reasons I did at this point in my life was to impact the world in a different way and to find real meaning in my day in, day out work. That means so much to me. And often what I find with women in midlife is they're looking for a sense of purpose or greater meaning and in their daily activities, whether it's work aligned or it's volunteerism or just how they are contributing out there, finding their contribution in a new way and kind of this second chapter of their lives or whatever, and wanting to enjoy it. And that's, you talk about impact, profit, and pleasure, and I love that.
Yeah.
How did you get into this?
It's a combination of many things that I've done in my life. My path has definitely not been linear. So I have a background in brick and mortar business operations and marketing. I did a lot of that in my 20s. Along the way, I was very interested in holistic health and wellness. So I was studying that and eventually started my own holistic wellness practice. During which it was sort of at like the very beginnings of the online marketing boom, I guess. I mean, I feel like it was so early on when I first started it. A lot of the conversations among my peers was like, wait, you have a website? How do you have a website? Like, nobody had this stuff yet. And so I was kind of like, I knew how to do these things. And I started helping other entrepreneurs, other holistic wellness professionals, and like building their online businesses and branding and marketing and all that stuff. And really along the way, as I continued to educate myself, I became a desire map facilitator, which was a really powerful process that I loved. I started practicing a embodied movement practice called Koya, and became a teacher of that. And so I think one of the beautiful things about this phase of life, like past 40, is I now have 25 years of knowledge and experience that I can really pull from to create something that is meaningful and unique and addresses things that I see in the world. it's one of the things I love most about this season of life is like that sense of like I've built this, like I've invested all these years in in learning and communicating and finding my own way. And I feel like that's a really exciting place to be.
It is such an exciting place to be. Yeah, isn't it interesting? I say to people, don't dwell on the past, but for sure, grab the gifts, the learnings, the blessings, the everything from it, and bring it into your now to create a wonderful future. And it sounds like you've seen how your own path, personally and professionally, has really led you through into and through this work now. And now you help other people identify what's really going to give them a real sense of worth and accomplishment and joy and all of that as they're defining their later years in their life as well.
Yeah, and I feel like often profit and impact. So I think, early in our lives, we like want to have like the good job that pays well, that, sort of creates the lifestyle that we think we want to have. Somewhere along the way, often we get this idea that, we really want to be doing something more meaningful. And often, especially for women, I think that pleasure aspect is the one that gets left for last.
Yes.
And what I have learned over the years is that it actually needs to come first.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we need to identify the impact that we want to have first in order to, in some way, justify to ourselves, like, I'm going to do that. And therefore, like, this is going to nourish that. But at the end of the day, in your day to day activities, really focusing on what feels good, what feels right, what feels aligned, and making your decisions from that place, I think is a really powerful place to be. That's very different from what most of us were taught.
I agree. I think it's exactly the opposite of what most of us are taught.
Yeah.
Frankly, I feel like a lot of us were taught to think about, what would serve others, what does everyone need, and that we were to get our meaning from serving others. And of course, there can be great joy and meaning in that. So I'm not against serving others, but I think like you, it's like, how about we give ourselves permission to feel pleasure first, to feel joy, to really think about and listen intuitively. What is my gut telling me would really bring me great joy? And I'll do that. When I line up with that, actually I will have an impact on someone else or something else or whatever.
Yeah. And I think we've been taught that they're sort of two separate things, right? That like either you're having impact, which means you're probably like self-sacrificing, you're working, you're taking care of everyone, or you're selfish and you're focused on what you want and you're not contributing. And I think a bigger truth is that you can have both, and that they feed into each other. And that if you figure out what the impact is that you want to have and you find a way to do it that really brings you joy and allows you to be in self-care. And I struggle with the word self-care a little bit because I feel like it denotes like taking a bubble bath or like, which is like
Me.
what I think that it goes deeper than that. I think it's like self-cultivation. I
Oh.
think it's about investing in yourself
I like
in
that.
a way that allows you to grow and to contribute even more versus this kind of, Calgon, take me away. I'm going to go get a pedicure. Like those are all great and like wonderful things. And the question I would ask is like, how could you cultivate your well-being internally, externally in a way that allows you to have even more impact in the world?
Oh, I love that. Self-cultivation. I've never heard that before, and I am in love with that concept. So thank you for sharing that. So I guess what I hear you saying is instead of thinking self-care, how can I escape so I can nurture my own well-being? Rather, how can I cultivate, grow, become more of myself, and therefore impact from coming up, showing up whole, feeling whole.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Because I think that we are able to have tremendously more impact if we are authentically ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and we're nourished and we're growing and we're expanding and we're investing in the things that are important to us. That allows us to have more impact. And that's where I think, when you look at people that you're like, I have no idea how that person is doing so much, like they've created a life that's so big.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's because they have set aside these ideas that like, you have to, meet all these criteria and you need to show up a certain way. And they're really just showing up authentically as themselves. And they're investing in cultivating their own ability to have impact. And then, that it's no longer linear. Now, all of a sudden, it just skyrockets the impact that you can have.
Wow. So it even really catapults the process.
Yeah.
And how has that shown up for you? I mean, were you ever not this way and you found this truth for yourself, or?
Yeah, I would say a little bit different than what's maybe like the typical path. I think that I was always very rebellious. I was asking big questions at a very young age, sort of like questioning like all of the reasons why we were being told to do the things that we were, whether it was at school, if it was at my church, it was from my parents. Like I was a rebel and I was always what's that?
I said you were that kid.
I was that kid. I was a giant pain in everybody's butt. But I would like, do these things like, well, why? And then I would see the adults around me, their faces would just be like, oh yeah, why? Why actually?
Because.
Yeah. Um, and so I don't think I ever really went down like a traditional path, although I definitely had periods of my life where I was like, no, I'm going to get a good job and I'm going to, like I'm going to do the thing that you're supposed to do now that you're an adult. And every time I did that, I found myself very unhappy very quickly. And so what I would say that I did differently, or the thing that I'm grateful for having, I guess, had the guts to do is to walk away from those situations. And I think the longest I stuck anything out was 3 years. And in my mind at that time, it was like an epic failure on my part. Like, why can't I just go get a job like other people get jobs and like build a career and like be on this path?
In that box.
I just couldn't fit into the box. And so what I do think it's allowed me to do is really just like question all these things. Why is it that way? And so even as I've gotten into the world of entrepreneurship and online business and the coaching industry, and, I can't help but look at things and then ask, why are we doing it that way? And is there another way it could be done that would feel better, that would be more aligned? And so many of those environments were dictated by men, a very masculine approach to things, the very capitalistic approach of like, I need to accomplish A, B, C, and D in order to get the output that I'm looking for. And I just believe there's more to the universe than that.
There's more to the universe than capitalism. You heard it here, folks.
I think there's brilliant examples of people who are doing it a different way, people who took their time, followed their own path, didn't follow the rules. As so many years ago, I remember looking at having learned all these things about how you're supposed to show up in business and online and in marketing, and then finding examples of people who were doing everything wrong and yet were succeeding spectacularly. Yeah.
I just had a conversation with some people about this, about social media, and how, I don't know about for you, but for me, I feel like, oh, I have to be on social media to have an online coaching business. Like I have to. Like this is the dialogue in my head. But think about how long social media has been around and how long business has been around.
Yeah.
Like businesses of all kinds thrived massively well before social media even existed.
Yeah.
So that's, but in the box of today, we think, oh, it's the culture. That's it. You must do this. If you're not on Instagram, you are, ooh, what's wrong with you? Right. When you're in our industry.
Yeah.
So it's really important and about life itself too. Like I remember seeing a talk show host say to a guest years ago, well, you have to call your mother once a week. She's your mother, right? But
Yep.
that's not everybody's relationship with their mother. And some people want to talk to their mom every single day. And
Yeah.
some have no relationship with their mothers. I mean, that's just one little example. And so I guess at this season in our lives, when we're in our 40s, 50s, 60s, like how about we make our own rules, whether it's
Yeah.
business, relationships, personal, professional life. We decide we're not in boxes. Like what is our definition of pleasure? What is our definition of meaning, impact? What feels good to us? And that I like you, when we're authentic with all of that, I don't think we can go wrong. Do you?
No, the thing is, if you're authentic and you really learn to listen to yourself, develop your intuition, trust that there's no wrong answer, there's no wrong path, and that whatever you're presented with, you can handle,
Yes.
like you've got it. You're not 25 trying to figure it out now. You have this life of experience that if you can trust that whatever happens, I can find a solution, I can find a way through it. I'm going to choose the thing that feels most right. And either it's going to work out or it's not. And if it doesn't, I'll be fine and I'll find another way. There's no, there's no point of no return.
Yes. And there's no shame in asking yourself those questions. Like you were
Yeah.
asking other people, why? Why would we do it this way? Why
Yeah.
is it done this way? Why is that the expectation? Your curious mind, your analytical self wanted to understand, or at least it sounds like to me, you really wanted to make sense of what you were seeing. And some of it didn't make sense to you. And so you were
Yeah.
going to find your own way to make sense of it. And like you said, once we're in midlife, heck, we've been around the block so many times. Like I would love to see all women in midlife, especially just drop fear, just get fear completely out of the equation, because it's like you've already been through stuff, gals. You've been through probably lots of stuff, and you've learned, you've survived so many things that you tell me about, so many things. So what if you go down the path with a new relationship or a new career or your own business or adopting animals or whatever you do? If in 6 months, 3 months, 3 years, you think, hey, that just means pivot, right?
It just means pivot. Yeah. I think relationships, I'm not a relationship coach. However, I feel like I have this conversation with women all the time where it's like, is it the one? Is this like, it's so important
Mm-hmm.
that, to know and to make a decision. I think in regards to relationship or choices in your business or choices in your life, I don't know where that came from, this idea that like once we make a choice, then we're just committed to it till the end of time. Because we're not, no matter what we do. Like I could decide right now, like, yeah, this shirt was a bad choice and I can go change it. There's no point of no return in relationships or otherwise. And I think some of that's related to not wanting to let other people down, but in the process of not letting other people down, are we letting ourselves down? I think is the question.
Yeah, when I was getting divorced in my mid 40s, part of what ultimately led me to that decision was we had two teenagers at the time. We'd been married 22 years. I tried all I knew to try to make that marriage work. I didn't want to get a divorce. But ultimately, when I felt like my health depended on it, I thought too, one of the things I'm teaching our teenagers is you can make even what we would call a lifelong commitment, which was my intention, of course, and their father's intention when we got married. You can even make that kind of commitment and you can change your mind. You are not stuck for 50, 60, 70 years if you truly do not think it's in the best interest of your life. And I'm not like, pro divorce. Everybody just, if you're unhappy for a day, go get a divorce. But it is an example. I mean, kind of the old school way of living, which isn't bad or wrong, but was you work at the same job for 40 years,
Mhm.
you get your gold watch at the end, you have your golden wedding anniversary, and then you live happily ever after. You retire when you're 65 or whatever, and then you live out your life and spend the rest of your money till you die and enjoy your grandchildren and travel. Boom. And that's the lot. That is the script. And that's just not that. It's wonderful when that works out for people. I still see cases of that, people
I
being
think it's becoming more and more rare. Like it just isn't the culture. It isn't the way the workforce operates. Jobs like that don't exist the same way they used to. And we're living longer and healthier, right? So I have a client who's brilliant. He's 70. Actually, he's probably 72 by now. We've been working together for a while. And he built an incredible business in his life. And now at 70, he's like, I want to write a book and I want to talk about, the things that I've learned. And he's snowboarding. He's doing things that I can't imagine my parents doing. The life is very different.
Yes. Oh, yes, 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 and yes. Yeah, I mean, like I find my children's generation, marriage isn't even necessarily a conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be, but it's not necessarily. And I remember growing up just thinking, okay, when I grow up, I'm gonna get married and I'm gonna have kids and I'm gonna get it. And I was fine with like that's what I wanted. But it wasn't even a question. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't like, oh, what will I do? Well, one of the things I'll for sure do is get married, have children, and get a house and a white picket fence and blah, 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 and that's all fine. But yeah, I met a lady just a couple weeks ago, 77 years old, entrepreneur. She's like, I wear jeans every day because I love jeans and I don't care what anybody thinks about it. You know,
Yeah.
she's looking good. She's feeling vital. She's lovely. She's energetic. She's still learning. And she's 77. I just love that. And then I was recently with my own mom, who, bless her heart, she's 80 and she's walking with a cane. She has a heart condition. She's very feeble. Like she's showing that age. So these two women who are only 3 years apart biologically are having massively different experiences. And so I guess my challenge for myself and my hope for everybody listening, and I think for you too, is that we find a way to create that meaning and focus on that pleasure to just keep building on our lives and enjoying life all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to not wait for permission from anyone to go do the thing that feels really meaningful to you or that just feels good, feels right. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago. It was all women. There were 300 women in the room, maybe.
Oh,
And it was lunchtime. And I went and got my plate. And I don't know about you. I don't love networking events.
oh
It's
yeah.
it's a thing I struggle with, and I definitely don't like sitting around the table like cafeteria feeling. I don't know if that's residual from high school or whatever. That I'm just like, I don't like this. I want to go outside. I want to be, I want to be in an environment. So I kind of went back to my table and I was like, I'm going to go sit outside. And one of the women said to me, can we do that?
Oh my gosh, you're
And
kidding.
I just was like, oh, and I went outside and nobody was eating outside. And I just thought, oh, it would never occur to me to have to like ask permission to go sit where I want to sit or eat where I want to eat or, you know,
What they think you were going to steal the tray. I don't.
I don't know. Are we allowed to? It was so fascinating. Um, but also the realization that like, you know, I've been kind of doing whatever I want to for a long time, and that's not what everyone's accustomed to. And so a certain part of what I feel is like, if you need permission, here's the permission.
No.
You know, the permission is when you look around and you see other women who are not following the rules.
Yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
mean, all I'm talking about here is you went outdoors with your lunch. I mean, it's,
Right.
I don't know what. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a big rule to break might have been if that was a rule to stay in the room. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. It's interesting. Isn't it interesting where people can stop themselves?
Yeah.
Just stop.
Instead of that feeling, you know, the question I always ask is like, what would make this feel better? What would I really like to do? And it's counterintuitive. But in the moments where I feel most stuck, most frustrated, most like I need to push forward, that's when I know what I really need to do is stop and do something else.
Will you say that one more time?
In the moments where I feel most driven to like push forward, to knock off the to-do list, to get things done, like when I start to feel all those obligations, that's when I know that I really need to step back, take a break, go for a walk, ease off. And 100% of the time, things get done, nothing breaks, nothing falls apart. You know,
Yes.
there have been times where I've been agonizing over a deadline and thought at some point I'm just going to have to like bite the bullet and just tell them it's not done and apologize. And then showed up to that meeting and heard, we decided we're going to go in a different direction.
Oh,
And I think, oh my God, I would have stayed up all night. I would have, you know, tortured myself to, you know, there was a version of me in my 20s who would have stayed up all night
sure.
and made sure that it got done and made sure everyone was taken care of. And not once has, you know, in how many, I don't know, decade and a half, have I ever found myself in that situation and then thought, shit, I dropped the ball and I really screwed this up. It always works out.
Never backfires to do what's
No.
best for yourself. That does it.
Yeah.
Say to you all the time, what's best for you is what's best for all. What's best for you is what's best for all. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be best for you to stay up all night.
No.
The next day you would have been mortified because they didn't want what you would have been working on all night anyway.
I would have been so upset.
You would have been tired and dragging and probably
Yeah.
crying and everything else too.
Yeah.
Probably dehydrated and all kinds of things that are not good. And then
Yeah.
the frustration level would have been huge. So thank goodness you chose to take care of yourself. That's having healthy boundaries too. I remember even in high school, this guy that was the homecoming king, the football quarterback, the straight A's, and super nice guy, super nice guy. And even though he was a straight A student, he said at 10 o'clock at night, Cindy, if the homework's not done, I go to bed anyway. And I thought that is so enlightened of him.
Yeah.
Because he had you could have said this guy was, he was competing in lots of ways. He was a high achieving person, but yet he knew, he was so wise to know it's not worth that. 10 o'clock, that's it. I'm out. And I don't think it ever backfired for him either. I think
Yeah.
he just knew if I don't get my rest, or maybe he knew this, reading this next chapter in the science book isn't earth shattering or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's discernment. So we need discernment. The wiser we
Yes.
get, the more we give ourselves permission to discern what our own rules are, what our needs are, how to navigate the logistics of our lives, the happier we will be, and therefore the better we will show up where we choose to show up, right?
Yeah. Shoe
love
up.
my shoe.
Somebody said, and I don't remember who, it may have been Danielle Laporte, show up every day, do as much as you can, no more and no less.
Mm. And some days doing everything we can is different
For
than
sure.
other days.
Yes.
I tell people do your best every day. And if it's stay in your pajamas,
Yeah.
not coming out from under the covers, even if that's the
Yeah.
best you got, then you just stay right there because there's
So
a reason, right?
there is a reason. And this is really an experience that I have intimate knowledge of in in the last few years. And I think it's definitely relevant to your listeners, which is, being a person who was always a high performer, always very driven, and always capable of handling all the things.
Oh yes.
Perimenopause is a beast, and we need to talk about it more as women. And I feel like there are groups of women who are talking about it more and more now. And we're just getting started. But there was this whole time period where my ability to get things done, to keep track of information, to feel motivated, and it was gradual. So it was just like, oh, I'm kind of tired. I need to rest.
Mm-hmm.
Until I got to where the best I could do in a day was like 90 minutes of work. And I needed to make those 90 minutes really powerful because my body was just not having it.
Wow.
My body needed a nap. My body needed to check out. My body did not need to be glued to my computer or, even exercising. It was just the best I could do would be to go for a walk and not some of the things I had done in the past. And the ability to slow down and pay attention to that and recognize there's something going on here and I need to address it instead of just trying to like plow through and maybe feeling like a failure because you can't do everything that you used to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Oh, I relate to that so much. So I've been a therapist professionally a lot of years in my life, and I was working at this counseling center and I was running it too. I was the executive director, and the kids were in middle school and high school, probably at the highest activity level for them. They were in everything, doing everything, blah, 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 blah. And of course, their father worked big time job in the corporate world. I'm running this nonprofit, doing counseling to get clients. I'm perimenopausal, not sleeping, waking up at 2 a.m., not falling back to sleep till about 5 a.m. most nights. And then, of course, the alarm's off at 6 and I feel slammed because I just haven't slept. So part of what was happening for me was I was literally by those mid-afternoon therapy sessions, I was fighting sleep, sitting there listening to clients bare their souls, and who are needing me to show up. I'm sitting there like literally my head nodding. It was terrible. I felt terrible. And I was just running out of steam everywhere. I was running out of emotional energy, physical energy, everything. And part of it was perimenopause. Part of it was a toxic marriage. Part of it was the high activity levels we were at, where we were just going constantly. And I sort of stepped back at one point and looked at myself. I sort of observed my life and went, you are going to spiral completely down if you don't rearrange your life somehow. And so I guess I started to, but I would like to encourage people who are listening to, again, put that pleasure, that wellness, your well-being as your number one priority, whether you're perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal, doesn't matter, but just recognize that some of what you're experiencing might be symptoms of that natural transition that feels very unnatural in many ways and very surprising. And whether or not any of that's affecting you, if you don't feel yourself, to ask yourself again, what would bring me joy, right? What would bring me pleasure? Isn't that the number one question? I guess I feel like you're saying, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, you're a satisfaction strategist.
That's
Right?
right.
So you're going to
And
help people find satisfaction in their lives.
yeah. Yeah. And satisfaction, I think, is different for everyone, what those factors are going to be. And so it's really at the heart, it's about getting to know yourself intimately, to know what does bring you joy, um, to be able to develop that discernment, to focus on those few things that are really important instead of all of the things that it seems, need to be done or taken care of. I think that's one of the gifts of this kind of second part of life. I don't know if it's a second. I feel like there was like the 20s was an era, the 30s was an era.
Maybe it's not the second chapter, maybe it's the 12th.
Maybe it's the 12th chapter. Yeah. Is is guess what? Let's slow down. Like, let's stop trying to do all the things. Let's actually just slow down and figure out what are the most important things to me to feel satisfied. And maybe it's half of what you were doing before, and that's okay. If that half is meaningful and that half is impactful and that half makes you feel really good, it's about quality, not quantity.
Yes, let's go for quality. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. All right. Well, that sounds like the perfect word to end this conversation with. Quality. Let's go for quality for sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, though? I just said end with that word, but is there anything else you'd like to say in terms of wrapping up or last thoughts or anything else important to you to say today?
What's important? I think the core key message here is that investing in yourself in order to learn to listen to yourself is the gateway to long, satisfying, impactful, meaningful life.
That's the equation to the best life possible. Huh? Beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, Rachel thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
All your wisdom and you're delightful to talk to. I appreciate you so much. Where can people find you if they want to reach out?
You can find me online at my very long Italian last name. It's rachelanzalone.com, and also on Instagram at Rachel Anzalone, and on Facebook the same. So I am online. You can send me a message if you want to chat. You can find more about what I do on my website.
All right, you heard it here. Anzalone is spelled Anzalone, and we'll put it in the show notes. But yes, Rachel Anzalone. You can find her in all those places. And thank you again, Rachel, and thank you all for listening. I'm so happy you were here with us today. And if you would like a free midlife strategy session, just go to timewithcindy.com, pick a time, and I will look forward to speaking with you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to the Life Makeovers podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with those that you think would also benefit from what we're doing here. And I will talk to you again soon.